Hey guys, today we dive into the story of a princess who didn't just wear a crown. She had to outthink an empire to keep it. Picture this: the Persian court at dusk, the air thick with jasmine and paranoia. Silk curtains flutter as nobles whisper behind their hands, plotting over wine cups they'll later smash to signal assassins. And there you are, not just observing, but living it. A 17-year-old royal with the weight of a crumbling dynasty on your shoulders. One wrong move, and let's be honest, you won't survive the week. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with where you're watching from and your local time. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You were born to rule, but Persia doesn't hand out thrones like festival sweets. Your father, the Shah, is a fading lion surrounded by jackals. His generals grumble about taxes, his viziers pocket gold mint for the army, and your uncle, the charming, snake-smiling Prince Varum, just happens to survive every hunting accident and poisoned figure. The court calls you Roshanak, little light, but you've spent years learning to glow just dimly enough not to blind anyone yet. Today's lesson? A dagger slipped into your tutor's sleeve during geometry drills. You catch the glint a heartbeat before he lunges, not at you, but at the Shah, who's admiring a new falcon. Your scream isn't what saves your father. It's the inkpot you hurl at the assassin's knee, the one you knew was too heavy for its stand. The court erupts. Guards drag the man away, but his last glance at Prince Varum tells you everything. That night, your father gifts you a ruby the size of a locust. For quick thinking, he says. But the real prize? The quiet fury in his eyes when you whisper, "Uncle's tailor delivered that inkstand last week." The inkpot incident should have been your first and last warning. But in a palace where even the roses have thorns dipped in venom, lessons come hard and fast. You learn to taste test your pomegranate wine with a silver needle, to spot the slight bulge of a blade beneath a dancer's silks, to memorize which corridors echo and which swallows sound whole. Prince Varum's smiles grow warmer, his compliments sweeter, which is how you know the noose is tightening. Then comes the Feast of Noras, where the court celebrates renewal while plotting decay. The great hall shimmers with 1,000 oil lamps, their smoke curling into the shapes of old grudges. You're seated beside the vizier's son, a boy with nervous fingers and a laugh like cracking ice. He spends the evening piling your plate with saffron rice. Too much, too eager. When you discreetly feed a bite to the Shah's favorite hound, the beast convulses before the dessert course. You don't gasp. You don't even stop chewing your own, untouched, portion. Instead, you watch as Varum's eyes flick to the twitching dog, then to you, then away, calculating. The game is laid bare now. Poison for the princess, blame on the vizier's house, and your uncle free to comfort his grieving brother. But you've been reading Sun Tzu by candlelight for years. When the enemy offers a sacrifice, let them. At dawn, you slip into the stables with a sack of silver and a story about a lover's rendezvous. The guards smirk and look away. Everyone knows royal dalliances are the best currency for silence. But the only heart you're wooing belongs to Razin, your childhood sparring partner, and the one soldier whose scabbard bears no hidden sigils of loyalty to Varum. Ride for the desert, you murmur, pressing a signet ring into his palm. Find the lion tribe. Tell them the daughter of Cyrus needs a debt repaid. You barely have time to burn your private scrolls before the palace gates crash open. Not with enemies, with fire. A conveniently timed rebellion in the lower city, they'll claim. As smoke blots out the stars, you do the last thing Varum expects. You walk straight into his arms, weeping about your fear of mobs. He pats your head like you're still that little girl with the inkpot. Big mistake. The desert doesn't care that you're royalty. 1 week into exile, your silk slippers are in tatters, your throat is lined with sand, and the sun is a merciless executioner overhead. Razin leads you through the dunes like a ghost. No fires, no straight paths, just endless, shifting gold under a sky bleached of mercy. You learn quickly. Sleep when the scorpions do. Tie your hair tight to keep the wind from whipping it into a banner. And never, never drink your full water ration, no matter how your tongue sticks to your teeth. The first bandits attack at moonrise. You hear them before you see them. The faint jingle of bridle charms. The snort of horses bred for endurance, not speed. Razin shoves you behind a rock as arrows whisper past. 5. He mutters, knocking his own bow. Amateurs. They're using pheasant feather fletching. You almost laugh. Only in Persia would a man recognize murderers by their craft supplies. But survival isn't about arrows. It's about psychology. As Razin picks off 2 riders with terrifying precision, you rip the ruby from your ear, the last jewel you own, and hurl it into the darkness. For the lion who brings me Prince Varum's head, you shout in the tribal tongue. The bandits freeze. That dialect belongs to the mountain clans, who skin traitors alive. The ruby winks in the moonlight like a predator's eye. They flee. By dawn, you're delirious with thirst. Razin drags you to a sandstone outcrop, where the rock weeps condensation if you know where to lick. As you scrape precious droplets with a dagger tip, he tells you the truth. The lion tribe won't shelter us without blood payment. Their chief's daughter was betrothed to my brother before Varum had him strangled with his own wedding sash. You stare at your reflection in the dagger, a sunburnt stranger with cracked lips and eyes gone feral. Good, you think. Feral things bite back. The lion tribe's camp isn't hidden, it dares you to find it. Tattooed sentries melt from the rocks as you approach, curved blades loose in their hands. Their eyes flick over your sun-blistered skin, your borrowed desert robes, the way Razin positions himself half a step behind you. Not as a guard, as an heir. The chieftain's tent smells of smoked goat and old blood. He lounges on piled carpets, cleaning his teeth with a dagger, the same one, you note, that's tucked into the sash of the girl beside him. His daughter, the widow who never got to wed. So, the chief flicks a date pit at your feet. The mouse who thinks she's a lioness. You could grovel. You could offer the last of your father's jewels, 3 emeralds sewn into your sash, for emergencies. Instead, you reach into your pack and toss a scroll onto the fire. The tribe gasps as flames lick at Varum's seal, a treaty promising their lands to the northern horse lords in exchange for soldiers. He's selling your ancestors' bones, you say? But I'll give you something better. The widow's dagger finds your throat before you blink. Vengeance isn't currency here, she hisses. You don't flinch. I'm not offering vengeance. I'm offering tax exemption. Silence. Then the chief throws back his head and laughs until the tent poles shake. Tax exemption gets you a tent, not loyalty. The lion tribe's elders spit at your shadow, whispering that women who bargain like merchants belong in brothels, not politics. Their sons accidentally let scorpions into your bedding. Their daughters leave goat entrails at your threshold, a warning from the old gods. But the widow, Layla, watches you with the quiet intensity of a hawk circling prey. You'll need more than royal decrees to survive here, she says one night, tossing a sack of rancid mutton fat at your feet. The desert answers to strength. Prove yours. The challenge isn't in the words. It's in the way her fingers linger near her dagger as she says them. Dawn finds you at the training sands, where lion warriors spar with bone-crushing relish. They grin when you approach, already tasting humiliation. But you've spent a childhood memorizing weakness. The way the champion favors his left knee after a dislocation, how the youngest fighter hesitates before fainting. You lose. Spectacularly. But you lose smart. By week's end, the warriors nod as you pass. Not respect, not yet, but curiosity. The kind reserved for strange beasts that might be poisonous. Layla finds you icing your bruises with stolen camel milk. You fight like a scribe, she sneers. You grin through split lips. And you negotiate like a princess. The next morning, a freshly sharpened dagger appears beside your pillow. Progress. The desert teaches you what palaces never could. Patience. While Varum's spies comb the Silk Road for traces of you, you learn to track sand foxes by the way their paws whisper over dunes. You memorize the secret water veins beneath the rocks, not from maps, but from the stories Layla's grandmother spits between tobacco-stained teeth. The tribe's children teach you to weave snares from camel hair, their small hands moving with lethal precision. Razan watches it all with quiet unease. Every day we linger, Varm's grip tightens. He murmurs as you grind medicinal herbs with Layla. Your people think you're dead. You crush a crimson berry between your fingers, staining your nails like blood. Let him grow comfortable in my grave. Corpses make poor guests, but excellent surprises. The plan takes shape in stolen moments. The caravan, a merchant train, arrives bearing news and silks from the capital. You slip amid the camels, disguised as a spice trader's mute daughter. The scar Layla carves above your brow completes the illusion, a slave mark from the Eastern Wars. The Whisper Network, the bazaar's fortune tellers, owe the Lion tribe favors. Their tents become your postal service, circulating coded messages in the guise of horoscopes. The moon in Scorpio favors bold moves, means the northern garrison is understaffed. The weakest link, Varm's new tax collector, is a former stable boy with a gambling habit. You watch him lose a year's tithes at dice, then vanish into the night, leaving behind a single emerald from your sash. By the time you mount the return road, the city gates will open themselves. The capital stinks of complacency. You enter at dusk, hunched between bales of cinnamon and indigo, your face veiled and your posture bent into the perfect mimicry of a drudge. The guards barely glance at your caravan, too busy pocketing tolls from weeping farmers. The streets, once vibrant with scholars and silk, now crawl with Varm's jackal-eyed enforcers. But rebellion thrives in shadows. The fortune teller's messages lead you to a potter's cellar where dissidents gather. A weaver whose son vanished after questioning the new taxes. A retired general with poison in his ring. A baker who needs coded maps into her bread crusts. They stare at your scarred face, your calloused hands, the way Layla's dagger hangs at your hip like it belongs there. The princess is dead, you say, lighting a lamp with Varm's own stolen flint. But the rebellion starts tonight. The baker is first to kneel. By week's end, the city hums with invisible sedition. The bread, every loaf sold to the palace, bears a tiny charcoal mark. Those who eat it wake voiceless. The songs, street children chant rhymes about the lion who sleeps in mouse fur. By dawn, the lyrics are on every noble's lips. The fire, not in the treasury or barracks. In the archives, flames consume decades of tax records while Varm's accountants scream over ashes. You watch it all from a rooftop, wrapped in a beggar's rags. Layla licks honey from a stolen figure. Still think words are sharper than swords. Below, a garrison captain beats a fruit seller for disrespect. The crowd's murmur is the sound of a throne cracking. Varm makes his move at the Feast of Twin Moons. The palace courtyard shimmers with forced merriment, acrobats tumbling over swords, poets reciting odes to Varm's divine wisdom, and enough wine to drown the doubts of every noble in Persia. You slip among the servers with a tray of sugared almonds, your head bowed, your steps perfectly mediocre. Then the music stops. A gift for our beloved uncle, you announce, your voice ringing clear as shattered glass. The crowd parts as you stride forward, bearing a golden box, the same one Varm's spies saw you burying in the desert last week. His eyes gleam. He expects a plea, a surrender. The box opens with a sigh. Inside, a single, mummified scorpion. The court gasps. Scorpions mean betrayal in the old tongue. Varm's smile doesn't waver, but his wine steward suddenly looks ill. How thoughtful, Varm purrs, reaching for his goblet. You knock it from his hand. Wine seethes across the marble, etching black lines in the stone. Hemlock, the crowd realizes. Meant for you. Chaos erupts, but you're already spinning the narrative. The baker faints at Varm's feet, her sleeve brushing his chalice, just long enough to switch it with the poisoned one. The weaver's son, now a palace guard, recognizes the wine steward as his kidnapper. And Razan? He's busy escorting a very alive, very furious Shah from the secret passage beneath the dais. Varm's downfall comes not from blades, but from a question whispered through the crowd. If he'd poison his own niece, who's next? The throne room is a cage of whispers and steel. Varm's remaining loyalists form a bristling wall of spears, but their eyes dart like spooked horses, toward the windows where archers should be stationed, toward the doors that won't budge, toward your father's sunken face as he grips the armrests of his own throne like a man clinging to a cliff. "Brother," Varm croons, spreading his hands, "surely you don't believe this child's theatrics?" The Shah's knuckles whiten. You see the moment he wavers, the way his gaze flicks to your scarred hands, your desert-lean frame. "She looks like a bandit," his eyes say, "not my rose-cheeked girl." So you play your cruelest card. From your sash, you draw a toy, a wooden horseman, its paint worn from years of small fingers. Your father's breath hitches. He carved it the winter the physicians said you wouldn't survive the fever. "You told me rulers must choose between love and power," you say softly. Then, louder, but Varm takes both. Ask the wives he's widowed, the sons he's orphaned, the treasury he's bled. A dagger flies. You don't dodge. The blade grazes your cheek. A shallow cut, but blood runs dramatic down royal skin. The crowd erupts. Even Varm pales. Assassination is one thing, but a public regicide? Your father rises, and for the first time in years, the lion of Persia roars. Steel sings in the throne room as Varm draws his shamshir, a curved monstrosity etched with verses from the Shahnameh about destiny and bloodshed. The irony isn't lost on you. "Let the gods decide," he snarls, and the court holds its breath. Single combat, an ancient tradition, one your father can't refuse without looking weak. You step forward first. The gasps taste sweeter than palace honey. Varm's smirk says deluded child, until Layla tosses you her dagger hilt first. Its balance is all wrong for you, and he knows it. That's the point. The first clash sends numbing shocks up your arm. Varm fights like a scholar, precise, calculating, every slash a line of poetry. You fight like a desert jackal, dirty, unpredictable, fainting toward his bad knee, the one the lion tribe's spies told you about. He backs you toward the dais, where your father's grip cracks the throne's ivory inlays. "Yield," Varm pants, "and I'll exile you gently." You spit blood at his feet. "How kind, but I've already won." His blade descends, and shatters on Razan's suddenly upheld shield. "Cheating?" Varm's eyes scream. You grin. "You said let the gods decide." From the gallery, 100 dissident voices finish the verse. But even gods favor clever mortals. The throne room erupts into chaos, but your dagger's already at Varm's throat. "Checkmate," you whisper. The crown feels heavier than you remember. Varm's execution is a quiet affair. A cup of wine in his cell, a prayer from the priests, a tomb outside the royal crypts. Mercy would have made you look weak. Cruelty would have made you look afraid. This is practical, and Persia understands pragmatism. But the real work begins now. The treasury coffers cough up dust when opened. The northern horse lords are massing at the borders, smelling weakness. And the nobles? They watch you like vultures circling a sick lion, waiting to see if the new cub has teeth. Burn the tax ledgers. You order on your first morning. The scribes gape. All of them. Start fresh. Layla leans against the map table, crunching an apple. That's not how kingdoms work. No, you agree, tracing the Silk Road routes with a dagger tip. That's how empires fall. By sunset, the first new decree is nailed to every city gate. Debt forgiveness. All peasant loans older than 5 years. Void. Trade incentives. Any merchant who reports corruption keeps half the recovered gold. Military service. Nobles must send their second sons to the border forts. No substitutes. The howls of outrage shake the palace. But in the bazaars, musicians add a new verse to their songs. The little light burns brightest at dawn. Rebuilding an empire requires more than decrees. It requires theater. You host a grand banquet, not in the pillared hall of kings, but in the dusty training yard where stable boys and sword masters spar. The nobles arrive in their finery, wrinkling noses at the scent of sweat and leather, until you descend the stairs wearing a warrior's vambraces over your silk robes, Layla's dagger at your hip. Persia was built on 3 things. You announce, handing the first cup of wine not to a vizier, but to the chief armorer. Deal, trade, and loyalty. The message is clear. Merit trumps bloodlines now. But the true masterstroke comes later. When the northern horse lords send envoys demanding tribute, you greet them in the throne room, surrounded by children. Not hostages, orphans. These are the sons and daughters of soldiers your raiders killed. You say sweetly, stroking a boy's hair as he clutches a wooden sword. I've adopted them. Isn't family precious? The envoys shift uncomfortably. An empress who treats common orphans as royalty is unpredictable, dangerous. That night, they sign a trade pact with remarkably lenient terms. Razin watches them right away. That was cruel. You examine your new signet ring, engraved with a lioness, not a lion. No, cruel would have been sending the children back with them as gifts. The next morning, the first shipment of northern grain arrives, free of charge. The assassin comes during the harvest festival, when the palace is drunk on music and roasted quail. You're reviewing irrigation plans in the garden, the scent of jasmine thick as syrup when a shadow detaches itself from the oleander bushes. The blade comes first, a needle-thin stiletto aimed between your ribs. But you're not there. Years of dodging court poison and desert ambushes have honed your reflexes. You pivot, feeling steel whisper through your sleeve, and bring your knee up hard. The assassin chokes, stumbles back, and freezes when Layla's dagger kisses their throat from behind. Wait, you say, not to the killer, but to Layla. Up close, the assassin is younger than you expected. A girl with calloused fingers and hollow cheeks. Not a professional. Desperate. You recognize the look. Who owns your debts? You ask softly. The girl spits at your feet. The same man who owns yours. The one who really rules Persia. Oh, so the merchant lords have finally shown their hand. You straighten, wiping the spit away with your sash. Tell your master this. You murmur, leaning close. I don't settle debts. A pause. I erase them. Then you do something no Persian ruler has ever done. You let an assassin walk away. Layla hisses. That's a mistake. You watch the girl vanish into the night. No, that's a messenger. Dawn breaks over Persia like a blade being unsheathed. The merchant lords expected fear. They expected barricades, paranoia, perhaps a rash tax on their caravans. Instead, you ride into the bazaar at the head of a procession, unarmed, unveiled, scattering silver coins to street children as you go. The Silk Guild master meets you at the spice stalls, his smile oiled with false humility. To what do we owe this honor, Majesty? You don't answer. Instead, you lift a handful of saffron threads, the most expensive spice in the world, and let the wind carry them away. Persia's wealth isn't in your vaults, you say, loud enough for the gathered crowd to hear. It's in this. You gesture to the dye makers stirring vats of crimson, the weavers singing over their looms, the farmers haggling over melons. And starting today, no guild taxes any artisan more than 10%. The guild master pales. That will ruin us. You tilt your head. Will it? Or will it just mean one less golden toilet for your summer villa? The crowd erupts in laughter, and something more dangerous, hope. By noon, the first merchant ship lowers its prices. By dusk, 3 guild masters resign. And in the shadows, a certain former assassin watches it all and slips a note into the baker's coated bread. Years later, they still tell stories about the princess who came back, how she walked out of the desert with sand in her hair and fire in her hands, how she broke traditions like brittle bones and rebuilt them stronger, how her enemies vanished not in screams, but in silence, one by one by one. You sit in the palace gardens now, older, wiser, sipping pomegranate wine as Layla's grandchildren chase peacocks through the hibiscus. The throne no longer feels heavy, it feels like yours. Razin, gray at the temples but still sharp-eyed, lays a scroll at your feet. The northern horse lords are at it again. You sigh? What do they want this time? An alliance marriage. Their prince is quite taken with stories about you. You nearly choke on your wine. Layla's laughter rings like daggers clashing. But the moment settles into something softer. The breeze carries the scent of baking bread and smithing fires, the smell of a kingdom at peace. Not perfect, not unchanging, but alive. You tip your cup to the setting sun. Tell the prince I'm flattered. But Persia isn't for sale anymore. And so we leave her there, the princess who became a legend, sipping her wine as the first evening stars blink awake. Her story reminds us that power isn't just about crowns or conquests. It's about knowing when to wield a dagger, when to offer a hand, and when to simply listen to the whispers of your people. Persia flourished not because she ruled with an iron fist, but because she understood the weight of every choice, the way a single decision could ripple through generations. Now I'd love to hear from you. If you could rewrite one rule in your own kingdom, whether it's a country, a workplace, or even your family, what would you change first? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay clever, stay curious, and remember, even the mightiest empires were built one choice at a time.